Hey, listen, just want to welcome everyone. I'm excited about this meeting. And, I was just thinking about, I'm near Athens, Georgia. Y'all know where the university is located, right, Riley and all? And the only better place I could even imagine would probably be in Stillwater today. And, I worked with the secretary for over 20 years. And, this summit today, and I was looking at the lineup and looking at all the great leaders, is so important. And I think during this really tough time that we're in, the fact that we're reaching out to communities to really connect resources, with the great challenges we have. And Oklahoma, a lot like Georgia, we're a very rural state. And, we talk a lot about at USDA, the acres of diamonds that are in rural America and the young people that we work with. So I just want to say congratulations and, Lee and all for putting this together. I want to bring, I don't know if Jackie's on, before I bring Riley up, because I want to talk about him just for a second, and then we'll move on to the great meeting. But Jackie, are you on?
I am, sir. How are you? How is
everyone? Before I bring you, Jackie, Jackie and I started, we put together these first summits almost 2 years ago. Jackie is a graduate of Alcorn State, and, we did our first summit there at Alcorn. And I know we got Langston, and, we got Muskogee Nation and Oklahoma State, our great land grants. And at that, and really that first function that we had, and right now Mississippi has a state prosperity council that we're working with, but Jackie was so instrumental in putting that together, and she's our deputy. And so Jackie, if you don't mind saying a few words, and I'm gonna effectively bring Riley in and let him run the show, okay, after you talk. So here's our deputy director, Jackie.
Thank you, Coach, and thank you for the opportunity. And I want to give a shout out to Riley, who has just taken on this initiative and pushed forth and put together a great agenda for the summit. We at USDA are here to serve. We are the People's Department, and we have resources through our agencies and offices that can change the life of anyone in this country. Through the Department of Agriculture, we touch the lives of every living thing on earth. And we are excited about this opportunity to share those opportunities that can really bring hope and prosperity to your communities. We put together a platform and a process working with our institutions of higher learning and our nonprofits, but we're also bringing in our faith-based communities as major partners in everything that we're doing. And with the help of this combined partnership to include our private sector folks, I don't want to leave them out. We are looking to really create communities that are sustainable, both environmentally and economically. So, through the programs that the federal government offers, in particularly USDA, there's a lot of hope there. So, our core mission is to foster hope and opportunity, build assets, and create wealth. And through our summits and workshops, this platform and process that we put together, that's just what we are planning to do. So, welcome to the Oklahoma Community Prosperity Summit, and we are here to serve.
Thanks, Jackie, and thanks, Mike. I will follow our Deputy and Director of the Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement by welcoming you also to the virtual Oklahoma Community Prosperity Summit today. Thanks for getting up early and logging in as we talk about wealth and asset building and creating hope and opportunity for communities all across the country. I want to give a special shout out to the Oklahoma Department of Ag, Food, and Forestry, and of course our team of USDA there in Oklahoma for making this such a great event. Community Prosperity Summits, as you know, are a part of the Centers of Community Prosperity work that Secretary Perdue launched last fall. It's a series of workshops and summits all across the country where we believe in locally driven, bottom-up solutions to some of our challenges, our greatest challenges in communities all across the country. And so this Oklahoma event is just one of many virtual and in-person events that we're hosting all across the country to make sure that we're hearing from community members alike and answering their questions about USDA resources and the resources available to them across the federal and private sectors. I'm Riley Pagett, Chief of Staff at the Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement here at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and I'm originally from Woodward, Oklahoma, so proud to be hosting this event today with all of you and excited to have you. My dad is on the call, so grew up on a cow-calf operation. He's here today, and so many producers that we've worked with in the state of Oklahoma have joined us today, and so it's an honor for you to be here. I want to give a special shout out to Arnetta and Eric Cotton, who have been with us since the get-go and who are also on the call, making sure that we're all sharing the good work of USDA programs. Speaking of other people on the call, certainly want to thank the staff of Representative Frank D. Lucas, of course, Oklahoma's 3rd District. They're making sure that Stillwater and Langston are all represented, and glad that you guys are here today. Thanks again to ODAF and USDA. But before we begin, I just want to send a quick reminder to place yourselves on mute. You only come off mute if you have a question for our presenters, of course, which we want you to feel comfortable coming off of mute and asking questions. This is an open dialogue, and also remind you that this is a recorded virtual seminar, and so we're hoping to use this for training purposes with our other liaisons across the country that will be hosting similar summits, and also for our website for public use. So just wanted to remind you that that is recorded, and we'll make several recommendations and reminders throughout the day. Without further ado, want to recognize the real star of the show at USDA Rural Development there in Oklahoma, State Director of Rural Development, and someone that many of you already know, Lee Denny.
Thank you so much, Riley, and Coach, thank you, and Jackie, thank you for all those kind words. Very excited that everyone's joining us today for this virtual Oklahoma Community Prosperity Summit. And as he said, I'm the State Director for Oklahoma for USDA Rural Development. And rural development is basically the strategic, economic, and community development arm of the USDA. I think sometimes we're a well-kept secret, and so that's part of my reasoning for being on today, to tell you what we have to offer. Almost before I was in this position, I knew rural development existed, but I certainly didn't know everything it did. And you know, we have programs for communities and nonprofits. We have programs for tribes. We have programs for individuals. We have programs for developers. We have programs for lenders. We have programs for businesses, and we have programs for utilities. And just real fast before I talk about COVID, I wanted to tell you about our 4 mission areas and what they cover. One of our most important mission areas is community facilities. And we give loans and grants and loan guarantees for just what it says: community buildings, libraries, city halls, community event centers, police stations, fire stations, and the equipment that might go in these facilities. We also, under community facilities, give water and wastewater treatment grants. And so these are very vital to the infrastructure of our rural communities. Under business and industry, we give loans and guarantees and grants to people who want to develop their own business in a rural part of the state. We also have our electric program and our broadband program under our business and industry area. We have a single family housing program. We think it's very important to get our rural residents into home ownership. So we loan 100% guaranteed or direct loan to these individuals for a low interest rate and a long term. And then we also have multifamily housing, which is apartment style living for the low and the very low, because at Rural Development, we believe these individuals need safe, sanitary, and decent housing. So we provide that for them. And then, as we've stated earlier, all these virtual meetings and school being online, Congress has decided that rural development will help expand broadband into rural parts of the nation, and in our case, across Oklahoma. And Oklahoma, you'll hear later today about how fortunate Oklahoma's been in receiving these dollars to expand broadband. We also have distance learning grants and telemedicine grants, which have also become vitally important during this COVID-19 time. But I basically want to share with you a little bit about what USDA Rural Development has done. And so if we'll advance the slide, please. Okay, go on to the next slide so we can talk about our Federal Rural Resource Guide. One more.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Go back.
This is the fun part of a virtual meeting. Thank you, perfect. If you'll notice on the screen, you'll see the cover slide of our COVID-19. Excuse me, Riley, did you? You okay? Okay, you'll see the cover slide of our COVID-19 Federal Resource Guide. And Rural Development has put this together for rural residents. And this is an excellent guide for so many reasons. And you can see the link at the bottom of the page. But in this resource guide, you will find every resource that's available for rural Oklahoma, not just from Rural Development, but from every federal agency across the spectrum. So if you have a for-profit business, there are all the links and all the agencies that you may need to contact for either technical assistance or financial assistance, or just local resources that you might want to use. If you're an ag producer, the same goes. We have the technical assistance websites for you. We also have any where you might get some financial assistance. If you're with a state, local, county, government, we have the resources available for you, financial assistance during these times, general local resources, and any technical assistance. And the same goes for nonprofits and cooperatives, such as our electric cooperatives, and things like SBA, paycheck protection programs in here, food and nutrition, anything under USDA, all these resources are in here. If you're working with a rural hospital, the resources for if you're a hospital that needs some help are in here, as well as our tribal members. And then the cool thing, I don't know if you've worked with the federal government very much, but on the very last page, there's a resource guide of all the acronyms. I don't know anyone that has more acronyms than the federal government. So on the very back page is kind of a dictionary of all the acronyms and what they mean, so you'll know which agency you're actually contacting when you look at this resource guide. So I encourage you all to go to this link and get this resource guide and look at it, and it may give you the help you need. One other thing that Rural Development is doing that we've never had this opportunity to do before, under our business and industry program, due to the CARES Act, we've been given $26 million in loan guarantees for rural businesses. And these are businesses that would have to be in place February 15th in 2020. So if you have a business that has capital needs that has suffered during this pandemic, we encourage you to come to Rural Development, to our business and industry program area, and get some help. But I said the cool thing about it is because we've also been given permission to help ag producers. And never before have we been able to help ag producers. That's usually given to FSA, which you'll meet Mr. Biggs here in a minute. But so ag producers that might not qualify for FSA loans and grants may qualify for the money or for funding under our B&I CARES Act. And again, these are to help you to keep your business going during this pandemic. And again, the only stipulation is that you were in business on February 15th, 2020. And then we would like to talk to you as a producer and help you through this. 90% guaranteed loan with a 10-year life of the loan. We can defer interest on this loan for up to a year, and we can defer a principal payment for up to 3 years. So this is an excellent program. The deadline's coming up at the end of this month. So if you have a need for this, I sure hope that you will contact us and get with us. And those are what we have to offer during this pandemic area. In our single family housing area, we have not evicted people. We have given them grace. We have also in our multifamily housing, we're keeping people in their houses, in their apartments, and keeping them safe through this pandemic. And we will work with them after this is over to keep them in safe, sanitary, and decent housing. And that's the goal for Rural Development. We believe strongly in the rural way of life. We believe in supporting the rural workforce. We believe in expanding connectivity. And then we also believe in expanding rural economic development so our citizens can live where they want to live. If they choose the rural way of life, we want to provide the opportunities for them to be successful where they don't have to commute to an urban or suburban area, and they can stay and enjoy the rural way of life. And so I thank you very much. And at this time, I want to introduce you to Scott Biggs, a good friend of mine. We work across the hall from each other in the Stillwater office in Stillwater. He's the State Executive Director with USDA Farm Service Agency. And so Scott, at this time, I will turn it over to you.
Sounds great. Thank you, Dr. Denny, and thank you for letting everybody know what rural development is definitely doing in Oklahoma. You've been making a difference, and appreciate that. And Riley, Coach, Jackie, thank you all for inviting me this morning. I appreciate the opportunity to address everybody. I must say, I know one of the goals with this program is to make connections, and just scrolling through the participants list and looking at the 90-some people on here, you're definitely putting the people in the place where they need to be. I know you've got quite a lineup coming up today from Dean Kuhn, Dean Risco, Secretary Arthur. These are the people that you all need to hear from, and I appreciate the opportunity to be joined in that crew. So, like Dr. Denny said, I'm with the Farm Service Agency, and I want to take a few minutes and let you know what we do, what we have available, and what we can do to get you some services from the Farm Service Agency. Now, I only have 10 minutes, and I don't have a lot of time for questions and answers, but I see the chat is up and running. So if you do have a question, by all means, please type it in there, and I'll be more than happy to make sure those get answered. But the Farm Service Agency in Oklahoma is something we have a presence in every county across the state. So on behalf of the 350 employees that work day in and day out for the Farm Service Agency, we are here to help you, and we want to help you. So I want to touch on 3 things in my time this morning, and hopefully one of these 3 is something you may have an interest in and something we can help you with. First is farm loans. So the Farm Service Agency here in Oklahoma leads the nation when it comes to having and providing access to capital to farmers and ranchers from across the state. Currently, right now, we have over $2 billion in our portfolio, ranging from a $5,000 youth loan. We are one of the only lenders that will actually give a youth loan to a youth that's engaged in some type of 4-H, FFA, or tribal program as a learning experience to further their agricultural experience. So we lead the nation in youth loans, farm ownership loans, from the beginning farmer and rancher to someone looking to expand their operation. We have programs available for that, as well as guaranteed loans. We work hand in hand with a number of local lenders across the state to do a guaranteed loan, similar to Dr. Denny's program. We have a guaranteed program as well. But one of the other things we do quite well here in Oklahoma is a partnership. So we like to go in and partner with the local banks, partner with you, and we do a lot of lending where the local bank will do 50%, and we can do the other 50%, or we can do 45%. And we have a lot of programs where we partner and provide that much needed capital to rural Oklahoma. So first thing that you need to touch on is, remember, we are here to help you with that farm loan. So if you have any questions at all, please reach out. Like I said, we have 350 employees and 58 offices and a presence in every county. We'll be more than happy to get you in the right place if you have any need for capital or any interest in a farm loan program. The second thing I need to touch base on is our second prong, our second avenue, which is in farm programs. So FSA here in Oklahoma, we have farm loans on the one hand, and then on the other side, we have farm programs. And those are what people traditionally think about as our safety net programs, a type of crop insurance, if you would. Those are what you hear when you hear ARC PLC, NAP. Those are programs that we offer for traditional farmers, specialty farmers. We're getting in some urban farming as well. So we offer a type of insurance program through NAP, where if you're unable to get crop insurance through a regular source, we can provide you NAP insurance on your commodity And we're doing that all over the state. We're seeing a tremendous amount of NAP activity, even from Oklahoma City and Tulsa with some of these new urban farms and specialty farms. So the NAP program is definitely up and running. And then you have the more traditional, the ARC PLC, the more safety net programs geared toward row crops, your traditional crops, corn, soybeans, sorghum here in Oklahoma, which Oklahoma is always busy in those programs. We have those available. But we also have a number of livestock programs, and those are the few things we're going to touch on. So Oklahoma is no stranger to disasters, so we have a tremendous amount of disaster programs, especially surrounding our livestock. So we have a livestock forage program where if we're in a drought, similar to like what we just got out of with that amazing rainstorm over the weekend, but we didn't get that rain, LFP would be triggering for most of the state, and we would be helping provide a forage to those cattle, to those livestock to help get you through this tough time. The other thing is we have some indemnity programs. If a natural disaster hits or something happens, you have a loss of some of your livestock, we have a program to help get you back on your feet and get you going there, the livestock indemnity program. So the second thing I hope you take away is we have a number of farm programs that can cover about anything you can imagine, from specialty crops, urban agriculture, to the traditional row crops and livestock. Our farm programs are extremely busy, and we'll be more than happy to see if there's something that fits your need there. The main thing I've been asked to talk about, and probably why everybody is tuning in a little bit, is about our CFAP program. So CFAP is our newest program here at FSA. We're 5 weeks into it. CFAP is the Corona Food Assistance Program. So what we have done here at USDA and the Farm Service Agency is we have taken some CARES money from the CARES Act that the Congress passed, as well as taken some additional funds that we had made available to us, and to create a new program to help the struggling farmers and ranchers at this time. So the CARES funding and the CCC funding can provide payments to their traditional row crops, the specialty crops, and to livestock. And I have to brag on my alma mater a little bit because the CFAP program borrows from something that Oklahoma State University and Extension had done, and that the ARC PLC, they developed an amazing Excel spreadsheet to help producers decide which program to pick. We've actually borrowed their ideal, and for CFAP nationwide have rolled out an Excel spreadsheet as a tool to help farmers and ranchers figure out how best to use this program. So this program is definitely unique in that it's being delivered mainly remotely, but we do have this amazing tool, this Excel tool, that should help producers walk you through the process quite simply. So some of the things that CFAP covers, the number one thing, especially here in Oklahoma, is livestock. So I want to focus on this. We are anticipating about 35,000 livestock applications for CFAP. Currently right now, week 5, we are sitting at 17,000. So there's about 17,000 eligible producers across the state who have yet to apply for benefits. And my hope and my goal is to reach as many of that 17,000 as we can, because Oklahoma deserves to have every access to this funds as everyone else. So if you have any type of livestock, if you had livestock January 15th, if you had livestock April 15th, please contact our office. Let us walk you through the process, see what we can do. Unfortunately, at this time, we are still not allowing visitors or producers into the office, but we are doing everything remotely. Thanks to Dr. Denny and rural broadband, and most of my employees are teleworking and have access to their phone, have access to their email, and we can walk you through the process. So I want to stress, we are here. We just need to hear from you. We need you to talk to us, and we can help you through this program. So CFAP, very simple. There's an Excel tool. I see Megan has been kind enough to put the link in there in the chat. We also have a 1-877 number. I won't say 1-800 because it is toll free. If you call that, FSA has a call center online. We actually have 5 people here in the state office in Oklahoma that staff that call center. So you're talking to someone locally to help answer your questions. So I know I'm pushing my time. I just want to recap the 3 things that I hope you take away from this event today is number 1, farm loans. If you have any need to have access to capital, FSA is here to help you. 2 is farm programs. We're available from crop insurance to the traditional programs, safety net programs. And then 3, and most importantly, is CFAP, Corona Food Assistance Program. If you have any interest in that at all, I need you to contact one of our local offices, reach out, and we'll be more than happy to walk you through that process. So once again, on behalf of the 350 employees with FSA in Oklahoma, thank you for your joining the call this morning. And it's now my privilege, stay on time, and to introduce NRCS State Conservationist Gary O'Neill. Mr. O'Neill, phone here. And
thank you.
Programs.
Thank
Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. I had some technical difficulties this morning, so I'm doing it by phone. I hope everybody can hear me okay. I have a few slides to go through, and hopefully we can stay on the same slide that I'm talking on. So again, thank you to Riley and Jackie for including NRCS. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the programs and assistance that we have available through USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. I am the state conservationist here in Oklahoma, native of Oklahoma, a graduate of Oklahoma State. If we go to the second slide, it talks a little bit about addressing resource concerns on private lands, and that's really the mission of NRCS. And in Oklahoma, we have a lot of diversity with climate, soils, geology, and the type of ag operations that we have. And so we have a lot of diversity in the kind of resource concerns that we help landowners address. With the variety and variability that we have with weather and different things, that creates a lot of opportunities for different resource concerns. Going to the next slide, conservation planning is really the start of our technical assistance. We have staff that can provide that kind of assistance, go out and walk the land with the landowner, identify what resource concerns might be present out there through some of our tools that we have, and then come up with practices and come up with some solutions that the landowner might want to look at that fits their goals and their objectives for the land. And so that first step, that conservation technical assistance, sometimes is all what a landowner might be looking for, just some help, some guidance, maybe some design, some different practice standards, and then they just want to go do that stuff or do that work themselves. Others might want to take advantage of some of the financial assistance that we have through Farm Bill programs. And if we go to the next slide, one of our bigger technical financial assistance programs we have is the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, or EQIP. And in Oklahoma, we normally receive $20 to $25 million of EQIP funds per year. This program has a continuous sign up. You can go into any of our field offices any time of the year and sign up for that program. We do a ranking period every year where we'll stop taking new applications and rank all those at the time that we receive, and then we make funding decisions based on that ranking. As you can see, there's a lot of different things that we can do with that program. If you have land that you're trying to address some problems with, maybe it's a new piece of land you purchased and you want to address some of the conservation issues, EQIP is a program that can help you do that. And you see all kinds of farmers and ranchers are eligible. We work very closely with FSA to help us determine some of the eligibility issues with Farm Bill programs. And there's a great opportunity to be able to apply for that program and receive financial assistance. There is a ranking process, and if you are funded, you'll receive a contract, and we provide funds for different conservation practices through EQIP. So it's a popular program, and one that can help you address issues on your land. I wanted to mention another program, the Conservation Stewardship Program, or CSP. Another very popular program in Oklahoma. We have more than 6,000 contracts that we administer every year. They're 5-year contracts. This program is really ideally suited for a landowner that has done some work, addressed some of the basic issues, and they want to take their land to a higher level of conservation. And so you receive a payment through those 5 years for the work that you've already done, the stewardship you've completed, but then you also agree to do some additional activities, enhancements to even increase the level of conservation. Again, this program has much of the same eligibility requirements as EQIP, and it's a continuous sign-up. And right now we're going through applications and ranking those, and we'll be making funding decisions here in the next month to 6 weeks on contracts for this fiscal year. And a program that has helped landowners move to different things like soil health, maybe cover crops, things like that, or advanced grazing systems, some of those higher level of conservation activities is something that CSP can help landowners do. I also wanted to mention our easement programs. This sometimes is not mentioned as much, but we have several different easement programs. The agricultural land easement is programs that will help protect pristine grassland areas. It'll help protect land from future development, or maybe a special species that we're trying to provide assistance to. There's opportunities for certain different easements. We also have the wetland reserve easement, a program where we'll take a land that used to be farmed and cropped, and we'll restore it back to a wetland condition. Oklahoma has 323 of these easements scattered around the state for over 82,000 acres that we manage and help landowners maintain. Landowners continue to own the land, but we purchase a perpetual easement through these programs. So that's another program that sometimes people forget about, but there's some great opportunities, and a lot of landowners have had great conservation success through some of our easement programs. Since this is a rural prosperity conference, I didn't want to not mention our Watershed program. Oklahoma leads the country with more than 20% of the nation's upstream flood control dams. We have over 2,100 of them. And these important infrastructure provides really good benefits to rural communities across our state. Many of them provide recreational benefits, flood protection, but also rural water supplies. So there is new funding for this program in the new Farm Bill. And we're very competitive here in Oklahoma. We're actually working on a new dam down in Love County right now. And so we think there's some great opportunities for communities to reap some of the benefits from these kind of infrastructure. I wanted to go to the next slide where it talks a little bit about how big this program is in our state. It's a $2 billion infrastructure out there that people don't even know sometimes exists. On an average annual year, that infrastructure provides $96 million of flood protection and benefits to our state, which is really, really important. So I did want to mention that there's new funding. If a community has those kind of interests, conservation districts are our sponsors for these structures. The Oklahoma Conservation Commission helps implement that, and we're excited about the future and opportunities in our flood control program, and think there's some great opportunities, especially in the area of rural water supplies. We have 38 of those right now that are set up that way, and we think there's more opportunity for that. My last slide is our field structure. Like Scott mentioned, we have a presence in every county. We're co-located with FSA and RD, and also conservation districts in our state. We are set up in teams right now. We have 21 teams that have a local district conservationist. This gave us more flexibility on some of our staffing issues, and we're excited about that structure. But my contact information is on this slide. If you have any issues, you have needs for conservation assistance, please reach out to one of our local offices or reach out to me, and we'll get you connected with some of our staff and start that process. We think there's great opportunities to utilize this kind of assistance in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's always been a leader when it comes to conservation, all the way back to the Dust Bowl days. So thank you for the opportunity this morning, and appreciate all of you spending time to learn a little more about what USDA has to offer here in Oklahoma. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary and Scott and Lee. Certainly appreciate you all taking great strides to inform folks of the good stuff going on in your offices this morning. We have a little bit of time for question and answer. And so for those of you who are listening in, if you've got a question and you'd like to send it over to the group chat, you may do that now. Or if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask away, then we've got a few minutes that Lee and Scott and Gary are open for questions. So feel free to, again, send it over to chat or unmute yourself now.
Okay.
Hey, Riley, I do want to say thanks to Gary. It's been a while since we've spoken, Gary. How are you all?
Very good. Thank you. Very good. Good to hear your voice.
Same here.
Rick Nelson, I see that you went off mute for a second. Did you have a question you'd like to ask the group?
No.
Okay, good enough for me. That must mean their presentations were good. Well, hey, FSA and RD and NRCS are certainly available. If you have questions, you can relay them to us and we will get them to the right people. But thanks again, Scott and Gary and Lee, for your participation and for co-hosting this with us today. Wouldn't have been possible without y'all. We appreciate the heck out of you. All right, with that being said, we are taking our first break of the day. And so we will come back here at 9:30 a.m. I would suggest that when you take a break, you not lose your connection. So you stay logged in. You can put your video on the X mark and your mute button on mute, of course, and just to maintain that technological connection. And then we'll join back here at 9:30 to discuss our next presenters. We're excited to have them as well. So again, we'll join back in about 15 minutes. All right, we are back. Thanks again for joining us. If you're just now tuning in, this is the virtual Oklahoma Community Prosperity Summit. I'm Riley Pagett, Chief of Staff for the Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement. Excited to have you join us today in partnership with the Oklahoma Department of Ag, Food and Forestry, and of course, USDA in Oklahoma. As mentioned, this is being recorded for future use. And so just want to make you aware that this is being recorded. If you have any questions for any of our presenters, you can insert them in the chat feature, or at the end of the presentation, you can certainly unmute yourself and ask the presenter whatever question you might have. We've got a full day ahead of us, but before we begin with our next set of presenters, I wanted to discuss with you why we're doing a lot of this. And it's because we are recognizing that there were a set of recommendations that came to USDA and other federal partners from the Task Force on Agriculture and Rural Prosperity. It's a White House task force, again, made up of several federal partners, in which Secretary Sonny Perdue here at USDA is chairing. For the remainder of our time together, we'll be featuring speakers who will illustrate the importance of those sets of recommendations, and will speak to each of those buckets. There are 5 buckets of priorities. We're focusing on 4 of them with the understanding that e-connectivity flows into all of these. And so if you'll check out the screen, you'll see those 5 recommendations. Of course, e-connectivity is discussed, economic development, innovation and technology, workforce, and quality of life. We're gonna handle these a little out of order, but without further ado, wanted to recognize Secretary of Agriculture for the state of Oklahoma and our presenter on quality of life, Blaine Arthur. Thanks again, Blaine.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Riley, for the introduction. Jan Lee and I were just visiting about how time had certainly gotten away. I think we visited about this in DC in February. We're very excited for the opportunity, and certainly wish circumstances were different, that we might be seeing everyone in person instead of virtually. But I think the great thing that we have seen at all levels of government is everyone has continued to find a way to do their jobs through technology and other resources. So we certainly appreciate the opportunity to partner today with USDA on a topic that's certainly very important to myself, but also to all of our ag producers here in Oklahoma. I listened to the speakers earlier this morning, so do want to give a nod to our partners and also good friends, Dr. Denny there at Rural Development, Director Biggs at FSA, and State Conservationist Gary O'Neill. They're great partners for us here in Oklahoma. Those programs make a huge difference in the way of life of all Oklahomans, and we certainly appreciate from the state perspective the collaboration that we have between the Oklahoma Department of Ag and USDA at all levels. I'll touch briefly on my responsibilities here in Oklahoma. I'm very proud to work for Governor Stitt. Started in this capacity in January of 2019. A portion of my job is serving as a cabinet member, but another portion is working as the director for the Oklahoma Department of Ag, Food and Forestry. And we're primarily a regulatory agency, but we also have a promotion arm. So we kind of at the same time assist producers in finding ways to be successful and promote their products, but we also have a lot of regulatory functions that we perform as well. So it's a great place to work. We have fabulous employees here at the Department of Agriculture, and try to do our best to see that we make successful paths for ag producers, but also for the state of Oklahoma, and also working to move us into top 10 status, which I think ties in well to the topic that I have here this morning on quality of life. Here in Oklahoma, we hear the governor talk a lot about moving us to a top 10 state in a positive way. And the one thing that is nice in the ag world is that we are top 10 in a lot of things in Oklahoma when we talk about production agriculture. And those are commodities that many on the call are very, very familiar with. And we have done a good job producing those commodities for a long time. But we always have greater opportunities to expand what we do. And I loved hearing Director Beatty earlier this morning saying there are acres of diamonds in rural America. And we certainly think there are acres of diamonds in rural Oklahoma, and we grow our best resources in rural Oklahoma, I believe, and that's both on the commodity side, but also on the people side. I know we have a lot of Oklahomans that we're very proud of, yourself included, Riley, who came from what I would consider rural Oklahoma, and we think we really have a way of life and a quality of life in Oklahoma, and specifically in the rural parts of the state, that contribute to successful individuals. And that's why we're so appreciative of these programs, and specifically the rural development programs that help foster that way of life and continue to make sure those opportunities exist. And thank you for advancing the slide real quickly. I wanted to talk about some of the photos that we have here. The one that I really want to start with is down in the right-hand corner. That's down in southwestern Oklahoma. That's in Hobart. And what I think is really important to note is that we have some young adults there participating in wheat harvest. And we're very thankful this year that we got to have wheat harvest. Last year, the rain kind of changed our plans significantly, but we had a very successful wheat harvest in Oklahoma this year. And I think something to note is that you've got several generations of producers in that photo, but you've got young adults who may be the fourth or fifth generation of their family who has been in those fields or fields close to that field, producing the food and fiber that is so essential to all of us in the world. And, you know, that's certainly a quality of life piece that we want to continue to support and foster the opportunities that exist for those young adults. Those individuals are very engaged in production agriculture. They're incredibly knowledgeable about production agriculture. And when we talk about the resiliency that we need in rural Oklahoma, specifically when we talk about quality of life, these young adults, I think, have the skills to bring a more resilient rural economy to life for us. And I know that's not just a Oklahoma issue, but across the U.S. we have seen changes in our rural communities. And I think so many of us love that rural lifestyle and the way of life. And we need to continue to put the pieces together so that we can increase the quality of life that we have there in those communities. And all of these young adults are also members of our 4-H and FFA programs, and I would be remiss if I did not mention those two programs as well, because I think they're a significant piece of the quality of life that we have here in the state. I will proudly say that I think we have the best FFA program and 4-H program in the United States. Riley certainly is someone we're very proud of, serving us at the national level with the FFA program. We've had several national FFA officers from the state of Oklahoma, and our 4-H program, I was very fortunate to spend some time at the 4-H Foundation here in Oklahoma. And again, our 4-H members here in Oklahoma really lead the way nationally in programming and awards that they have received. So those are two kind of strongholds here in the state of Oklahoma. and those young adults can really contribute to this quality of life piece. They work hard, they understand what's important to their community, and I think they will be the ones that help us continue to grow those areas and help us to find some success. And I know when we talk about a big purpose of this discussion is to kind of create, foster hope and opportunity. And if you can't talk to 4-H and FFA students and see hope and opportunity that exists, then I think maybe you haven't visited with enough of those young adults, because I think there are no better leaders that we have and no greater opportunity to continue to support those young adults. And that's really going to make a difference for all of us. Want to talk a little bit about health and wellness. You can see we've got a photo of one of our wonderful farmers market venues. This is more kind of a roadside stand that's just outside of Ada, and I wish that I could share. They have wonderful peach ice cream. I wish that we could hand that out to everyone this morning. But when we talk about health and wellness, especially in our rural communities, making certain that there is access to fresh produce and making sure that we're just addressing food deserts is certainly very much a priority of us here at the Department of Agriculture. We have a new healthy food financing initiative that will help us to address that both in rural areas and urban areas. But when we talk about the health of our individuals, that's a very, very significant piece of it. We've seen tremendous growth in our farmers market venues. Those are registered with the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, and we continue to find ways to expand that reach and fill in areas of the state where there may not be farmers market venues available. I know something certainly that was unique that we saw during March, April of the COVID-19 situation is a lot of those products that people were accustomed to finding in their grocery store might not have been there. And there was a big push to see lots of local produce for consumers. And they were wanting to say, who is my local producer, if it's of beef or pork, or where can I find produce, those kind of things. There was a big push to make that happen. And so those farmers markets saw tremendous kind of uptick in participation this spring, because people were looking for those products, and our farmers markets here did some tremendous things as far as contactless purchasing and delivery of items. And we want to continue to grow and expand the opportunities for those markets, because ultimately when we talk about healthy living and some of the challenges that we have in regards to health outcomes in the rural parts of the state, making sure that they have accessibility to those products on a regular basis is incredibly important. I know that rural development has some pieces that can help us with that, but that's going to be a push that we'll continue to see. Telemedicine is certainly another big piece of that, and I know we've got some of our great friends from Oklahoma State University on the line here with us, and certainly want to give a shout out to my good friend Dr. Casey Schrum at the OSU Center for Health Sciences. Telemedicine is something that she has done a lot of work on historically, and I think we have seen the benefit of that over the past few months, as we have had individuals that have used telemedicine to interact with their local physicians. And here in Oklahoma, depending on where you live, that means that you maybe can have access to some expertise and not have to travel several hours. And so we want to continue to push the focus on telemedicine, because there's a lot of people that really enjoy where they live, and that may not be within a few hours of a metro area, but they need to utilize those resources from a health perspective. That's one thing too that I think is important to talk about a little bit is there's lots of individuals who love the rural way of life and love being in production agriculture, but they're the job creation, and I know we're going to talk later on about economic development and workforce development, but that's a huge piece that is so important to all of us as well. when I think about the miles that are put on some vehicles so that folks can get to the job that they need to go to because they enjoy that rural lifestyle, I think that shows the value that that brings. It's certainly a wonderful place to raise your family. I myself am a mom. My husband and I live on a cattle operation in kind of the north central northeast part of the state, and for our 2 young children, we think there's no better place to raise them than in a rural area. They go to a very small rural school, an opportunity that we think is tremendous for them because of the quality of life pieces of that. And you know, for us, we're very ag centric. So for us, that may be working calves in the evening, or most recently leading lambs at nighttime, which has been a new adventure at our house. But that's the piece of rural America, and certainly the ag piece of rural Oklahoma, that's so important to us, and that we believe creates these wonderful community members. And I think ultimately all of us are wanting to help increase the value in our communities. And I think we do that through our youth and through individuals, and having those opportunities there is very, very important. Another photo we've got there is at the Oklahoma City National Stockyards. And part of quality of life is the infrastructure piece of that. And we move a lot of cattle through the state of Oklahoma. And that means that we need the infrastructure to be a big piece of what we do in the ag world. And I know we've got a great focus here at the state on how to address some of the challenges that we have in the infrastructure side of things. And we move a lot of product from west to east and north to south, and certainly a lot of livestock, all those directions as well. And so the programs that we see, and I know Dr. Denny mentioned several of those earlier this morning, specifically in regards to infrastructure, those are incredibly important to moving those commodities. We've got a lot of people that like to see that food supply remain consistent and show up at their grocery store. And so making sure we have the infrastructure in place to have that food arrive where it needs to be is important. And it's certainly more challenging sometimes in rural areas because you're doing a lot of work for maybe just a few folks that live down that county road, or that need access to a certain point. And so there are dollars that have to be expended, but we always want to remember every farm at the end of the road and everybody at the end of the line, and make sure we're putting infrastructure pieces in place for them to be successful. And certainly broadband is a big piece of that as well. And we're incredibly appreciative of Secretary Perdue and his efforts in regard to broadband. And we've had some positive announcements here in Oklahoma, and Dr. Denny has been a huge piece of those as well. So that is a wonderful thing that just makes a difference to the quality of life for our individuals and to the success that they can have. We have a lot of agritourism venues here in the state of Oklahoma, and they utilize technology to market their products and to encourage individuals to come to their locations and to hopefully come back to their locations. And so having that infrastructure piece in place is incredibly important to those agritourism venues as well. And I want to touch on agritourism for just a moment, because I think it really shows how important quality of life has become to people. And I'll talk specifically to Oklahoma. There has been a change, I believe, in over time, and several folks know that we're many generations away from the family farm, but that experience of being outside, working potentially around livestock, maybe it's just a horseback riding agritourism venue, that might be a U-pick berry opportunity, but people want that opportunity and that experience for their family. And I think a lot of parents want that opportunity and that experience for their children. They see the value in having the products that you grow and produce showing up on the table, certainly, but also in these young adults seeing what is required for that food to show up on their table. And from our agritourism venues perspective, it's a great opportunity for them to have additional income generation. They probably have a working ag operation and have added agritourism as another venue, another arm of that at their place. And I know my kids are always surprised that somebody would want to come pay to do work because we force them maybe to do chores some evenings when they're not enthusiastic about it. But I think there's no question that the 98% of the world who's not involved in production agriculture sees that quality of life piece that so many of us enjoy. We talk a lot about we don't live in Oklahoma because of the weather. There's no question about that. But we live in Oklahoma because of the opportunities that exist here, and certainly because of the people. And I think we see a lot of that in the rural parts of the state as well, and how important that is to individuals in the rural part of the state. Want to talk just real briefly about just housing. I know that's on your list too, Riley, when we talk about quality of life and giving those opportunities to individuals, and all of those pieces, the education piece, the health piece, housing, infrastructure, all of that ties into the quality of life that we want to have. And certainly I know Secretary Copeland's going to talk about economic development, but that ties in importantly as well. And from the Department of Ag's perspective, when we talk to these businesses about how they can expand, what they want to do, that quality of life is very important for all the individuals that work for them in these specific communities. And I think that is changing as well, what someone wants in regards to quality of life. And we've got to be cognizant of that and what's important to those individuals. I think different generations have different priorities, and we need to look at those and see what those are and see how we can facilitate making those available to everyone, because that's a good thing for ag. We also I want to touch briefly on sustainable communities. We see people changing, people moving to different communities within Oklahoma, but I also think we're seeing an influx of individuals who want their families to have that opportunity that exists in those communities as well. And so this focusing on all the pieces of quality of life and what that means to someone, I think really helps build sustainable communities. And, you know, tying back into our youth programs that are available through the 4-H and FFA programs, I think that is creating educated adults ultimately from these young people that then want to come back and be part of the community and help build and grow that community, which is beneficial to everyone ultimately. I think that, you know, the final picture that I have there that I haven't spoken on specifically is our beef cattle industry there, where we've got those two mama cows standing out there. And you know, it's a unique thing in Oklahoma where if you look at a map of the United States, that we're one of the states that we've got more cows than we do people some days, and we've got 4 million people in the state of Oklahoma, and we also we've got a lot of cattle as well. But I think that is a great piece, because we are seeing where people can be, and why I'm talking beef industry specifically is the beef industry is so diverse here in the state of Oklahoma, and touches on that quality of life that individuals can find to be successful. We've got a lot of producers who are full-time producers in the beef industry, but we also have a lot of producers here in Oklahoma who have less than 30 head of cattle, and so they may have another job, and they raise cattle kind of more on the side along with whatever their other income is for their family. And I think there's lots of opportunity for individuals who have something as more of a steady full-time income to add ag to a part of their world. We see that in the agritourism venue. We see that some in the livestock and the cattle production side of things. We also see that people just have taken a very strong interest in gardening and producing food, maybe just for their family specifically. OSU Extension is a huge part of encouraging our Master Gardener programs. here at the Department of Agriculture. And I know we've got some of our Langston friends on the phone, but we have a wonderful garden that we do outside here in front of the building. In Oklahoma City, we can grow wheat, we can grow cotton, we can grow kind of any vegetables that you want, but that's a big thanks to Langston and their staff for making that happen. So I think we see that merging of the interest in production ag and what that means when we talk about quality of life and how important that is. The final thing that I want to mention, and I apologize if we have sound issues, this is a perfect time when they're mowing outside my window today, so we apologize for that. We want to talk just real briefly. I know I've talked about health a little bit, but we also want to mention mental health. That is an issue in the ag world that we don't talk about a whole lot. Being a farmer, rancher has a lot of value to it, but sometimes that's a lonely operation. You may spend a lot of time on the back of a horse, or you may spend a lot of time by yourself in the cab of a tractor. And certainly with challenges that we have seen in commodity prices over the last few years, and especially during this challenging situation we have had here in 2020, ag mental health has been a very big discussion among all of our producers and all of our commodity groups here in the state of Oklahoma. And we want to make sure that people see resources that are available to them. And we've got a video that was done by the department that will make sure and get information out to if anyone wants to access the ag mental health video that we've done. Now I see that Steve Mosier has asked a question. I love questions because I know I can just ramble on. Steve, we certainly have seen an increase in demand for meat processing here in Oklahoma. We were very excited yesterday here in the state of Oklahoma. We had an announcement with Career Tech. We've got a wonderful Career Tech system here in Oklahoma, and they're offering 3 new curriculums in meat processing. Those are online curriculums that are up and available starting yesterday morning. When we saw a lot of our consumers that went to the grocery store in March or April or even now and were looking for a particular type of protein, they might not have found it. A lot of that is because we had a shift in food going to retail. There was a big demand at retail because a lot of us were not eating out at restaurants because we were staying in the home or sheltering at home. And so restaurants that were not utilizing those products, and it is hard for us to shift that food supply. And so certainly what we have seen out of that, and we've had significant discussion here in the state of Oklahoma, is in regards to processing. We have a lot of large processors. We don't have any significant size beef processing facilities here in the state of Oklahoma currently. There are a lot of folks at all levels having discussions about how we can help foster and support the development of more processing. And the announcement yesterday with Career Tech was specifically to the education piece for the workforce and labor force needed in those. We're also having discussions in regards to government regulations, HACCP plans, where our current facilities are located, where the need might be. I certainly believe there's a lot of opportunity for more small and medium-sized processors to come into the market, and that certainly ties back into our discussion we had earlier about farmers markets and people wanting the opportunity to purchase that local product and to support specifically their local beef producers here in the state of Oklahoma. So I think, Steve, we've had more calls about processing maybe than anything else this spring. And so we're doing everything that we can to assist new facilities that want to come online. We're working to expand the capacity of existing facilities, both state inspected and federally inspected. Some of that has to do with making sure that they have an inspector available to them for the days that they want to run. But you'll continue to see a lot of support from that from the state of Oklahoma, and doing everything that we can to work with our partners at USDA, FSIS to make sure that we're educating all of those individuals at the plants, because we also always want to keep food safety as a priority in anything that we do in the ag world for our consumers. So that discussion will continue. I think there's lots of enthusiasm for folks who want to be able to have a way to market their products directly to consumers, and we want to do everything that we can to facilitate that. So I do want to be cognizant of the time that Riley so kindly provided me to speak with you all. So I think I've got just a couple minutes left, Riley. If there are any other questions that someone has or any other items that we can address, we would certainly love to do that.
As a reminder, you can type those questions in the chat feature or unmute your lines and ask Secretary Arthur directly.
Well, it looks like they're going to be an easy crowd this morning, Riley, but I certainly want to wrap up and say a big thank you to USDA, to yourself, to Director Beatty, and to, which it sounds like he goes by Coach. So if I
pretty often, yes, ma'am.
In person, I will certainly address him that way. But to all the staff at USDA and certainly all of our partners here on the state level, I think that we've had probably more of a unique time to live and work through than any generation can maybe remember right now. And I'm very proud, certainly, of how USDA has handled that and how our folks here at the Department of Agriculture have handled our responsibilities. But I think it all comes back to partnerships and all of us wanting to see success for our producers, but also ultimately for the state and the nation in general. So I know it's a challenging time, but I also think there's lots of opportunity for us all to see some really good things come out of these challenging times. So a big thank you for the opportunity to speak with everyone this morning. Thank you everyone who has been on the line and will be listening for the rest of the morning session. And so thank you again, and look forward to continuing to work with all of our partners in the future.
Arthur, thanks so much for joining us and for helping us co-host this event. You're right. Seems like forever ago, but also just yesterday that we were talking about this, and an honor to have you here. I can't think of better advocates for ag and the state of Oklahoma's quality of life than you and Jared and Kelton and Kennedy. It's really fun to see the cool things that you all do regularly there on the farm, and then also in your day job as Secretary of Ag. I also want to give a quick shout out to your staff. They've been great to work with. I know I'm going to miss someone, but Jan Lee and Whitney and Emily and Michaela and Morgan and others, we just certainly appreciate the work that they've put into this as well. And so it's good to know that we've got a good crew back there working.
Well, thank you very much, Riley. I'm very proud of all the individuals that work at the Department of Ag here in Oklahoma City and across all of our field spaces as well. I have gotten one quick question, Riley, if I've got a minute to address
Absolutely.
it, from Dr. Robinson at Oklahoma State. I know they have the Rural Renewal Initiative at Oklahoma State, which is one of the top 4-tier priorities that the VPR's office is focused on, and regarding if that can assist in improving quality of life for rural Oklahomans. I think there is no question that that's the case, Dr. Robinson, and I very much appreciate the work that Dr. Robinson and Dr. Auctioner have done on that particular area. I know that especially Dr. Robinson being from Hollis, which is a big metropolis down in southwestern Oklahoma, he certainly understands some of the unique pieces of the quality of life in rural parts of Oklahoma. And there's so many of those that we love. We love the Friday night lights. We love everyone knowing our kids' name at school and who their siblings are, and that if they get in trouble, we know before they even get home for the day. But along with that kind of the shrinking population, there are certainly some things I think that we can all do to see some expansion, because I believe, certainly Dr. Robinson and everyone else on the line, I think that people want to be in rural America. They want to be in rural Oklahoma, as long as we can put these pieces together for them that address education and health outcomes and housing and infrastructure. And I think with all of us working collaboratively, we can do that, and we can see some renewed enthusiasm in all the parts of rural Oklahoma over the next few years.
Thanks again, Secretary Arthur and team. We appreciate you all. Would love to, turn any questions to the Secretary's team. If you have them offline, we'll certainly get them to the right people. And at this time, I wanted to introduce one of Secretary Arthur's colleagues and someone that you all also probably know well as the Secretary of Commerce and Workforce in the state of Oklahoma, Sean Copeland. So Sean, the floor is yours. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Riley. I appreciate it. I hate going after Secretary Arthur. I'm telling you, that's the worst. But she is awesome to work with, and we've got a great cabinet. What I'm going to do today is just talk a little bit about Oklahoma on the economic development front. I'll talk about kind of our response to COVID, what we have done, where things kind of stand right now. Try to just talk about some really practical stuff that I think might be interesting to folks, as opposed to try to stay away from kind of the generalities. And then at the end, we'll talk about kind of our rural Oklahoma efforts and open it up for a Q&A. So I shouldn't have any problem staying within the 10:30 time frame. What's interesting is that Secretary Arthur, myself, Brent Kissling, who is our executive director within the Department of Commerce, are all Aggie-Con grads from Oklahoma State, and all grew up on and still are involved in farming and ranching. And so when we go out and say that we truly have a heart for rural Oklahoma, the reason is because we live there and we're involved there and grew up there. And so it's real, our desire. My role within the Department of Commerce, I have 36 different agencies that report to me at the state level, and it's anything that's kind of business related. So it might be Insurance Department, Department of Labor, the Department of Commerce, Office of Workforce Development, any licensing agency within the state is kind of my responsibility. And so I've got a great team, super great executive directors. And so here's kind of what we have done to respond to this COVID-19 crisis that we are all dealing with. First of all, we opened up early. So a biggie was we were very involved with, we had a group of business owners and healthcare professionals that were working together to look at data to make a decision on when to open up Oklahoma. And so we opened up, as you'll recall, we started opening up back on April the 24th and have been fully open now for about 60 days. Now, we obviously have had a spike in the last few days in our cases, and we're watching those very, very closely. But it's important to note that the reason for the shutdown in the first place wasn't to eradicate COVID-19. We're not going to do that. It was to make sure that we have plenty of hospital capacity to take care of individuals who were impacted. So our deaths have stayed low, frankly lower recently. Our cases have gone up, but our hospitalizations have not gone up significantly. We're setting it around, I think, 265 hospitalizations in Oklahoma today. That is compared to about 5,200 beds that we have available throughout the state. So a very low percentage of usage, and we feel like we're okay and we can handle this. Our testing has really shot up. We've done over 250,000 tests within the state. And so that also tends to drive the number of cases. But there is no doubt that, recent phenomenon, whether it's, large gatherings or whatever is causing it, is we are beginning to see an increase. So we are watching that literally every day. We have a meeting at the end of every day to look at the data. But we did open up early because we wanted our businesses and our producers to begin to get the benefit of customers coming back and getting their businesses going again. We focused heavily on communication. So every Wednesday since the beginning of COVID until now, in fact, I just jumped on this call because I just wrapped up an industry call that we have. So every Wednesday, we have held 8 different industry calls for industries across the state of Oklahoma. And I host those, provide them with any kind of data, programs, funding, anything that we can think of to help them, and then answer Q&A at the end. And we've gotten thousands of notes and cards and things saying that the government's really never done anything like that. And I think we were the only state in the country to do anything like that. We are still doing those calls. And so if anyone is interested in joining us, we've narrowed them down to 2 because now the information isn't as industry specific and it's more just kind of statewide. And so we have calls at 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. every Wednesday, and you can go to our Commerce website to get details on how to join those calls if you are interested. We focused heavily on PPP, so Paycheck Protection Program. We felt like was the first thing we needed to do, get out as much information as we could, make sure both our banks and our businesses and of course our ag producers knew about the program, access the program. And so we ended up being number 4 in the country in terms of usage for Paycheck Protection Program and the SBA EIDL program. And so we felt good about that, and at least bought our businesses some time, to help them get up and going. We announced the Oklahoma Manufacturing Reboot Program about a couple months ago, maybe a month and a half ago. And this was a program where we took $5 million that we would typically use to recruit businesses into Oklahoma, and we repurposed those dollars, still within the statute, and offered it to manufacturers who were struggling and who were having, many of those were in rural Oklahoma. I think about half of them were rural, and many of them were related to the energy or aerospace industries, and we helped them pivot and kind of change their business model so that they could survive. Some of them pivoted to help us with hand sanitizer and masks and gowns and that type of thing, but we got great response and were able to get those dollars out to businesses where we felt like they were needed the most. We then announced the Oklahoma Bounce Back Program, and this was a program that was, it was called the Oklahoma Business Expansion Program. It used to, the way it worked is if a company made a big investment, then they could come to us and apply, and we could give them a rebate back on their payroll taxes that they pay to help offset the cost of that very large investment. Well, we lowered that investment substantially and made it such that a smaller business, as long as you had $1.25 million in annual payroll, you can now qualify for this program. So we had about 100 businesses so far have taken advantage of that, almost $10 million that we have distributed on that front. We set up, and I give Brent total credit for this, but he had the great idea to set up a PPE source directory. So with businesses opening back up, so many people were trying to figure out, where do I get masks? Where do I get hand sanitizer? Whatever they might need. So we have about 100 companies on our Commerce website on the PPE source directory tab, where you can go out and find a company close to you that provides those things and have access to them. We partnered with the Oklahoma Manufacturers Alliance to roll out a program called the Supplier Scout Program. And really, this is their program, but we're working with them on it and helping to publicize it. This is a really cool deal as well, where businesses, in many instances, their supply chain has been disrupted. So, maybe it's a part or some type of material that they are getting from overseas, and all of a sudden they can't ship, or they're not getting that material anymore. So we created a database where if you need something, you go to the Supplier Scout database, let us know what you need, and we help you find someone in Oklahoma that provides that same part or material. And so that has been a win-win. That has helped many of our businesses stay in business, but it's helped bring more business to the state of Oklahoma. We put together a bounce back task force. So at the governor's request, I pulled together a group of the top business leaders and government leaders within the state, and we spent about 2 months working on what can we do to get our businesses back up and going now? You know, I mean, we need our businesses to flourish and survive. And so this group, man, worked very, very hard. We had 4 working groups: marketing and messaging, workforce development, economic recovery, and then long-term planning and infrastructure. And we just asked them to come up with their 5 best ideas. And so that has been completed. That information has been sent to the governor. As soon as he gives us the green light, we will share that with the public. And I think we have some really, really innovative ideas for getting Oklahoma back up and going. And then finally, what I just spent an hour on another Zoom call was training businesses on a brand new program called the Oklahoma Business Relief Program. And so let me just give you a little bit of information on that, so to the extent that you, people within your community, might be interested. So first of all the information on this program is available at okcommerce.gov/relief. Or you can just go to okcommerce.gov, and it's very prominent there, and you can get access to this. But the program allows Oklahoma businesses to secure a grant up to $25,000 from a local financial institution. And in essence, if you're familiar with the Paycheck Protection Program, this program is similar to that in that you can get a grant for 2 months of payroll up to $25,000. Sole proprietors qualify as well. The same businesses that qualify for PPP qualify for our relief program, but there are some, I think, really good differences between the 2 programs as well. So first of all, we had to set the grant maximum at $25,000 because we had over $6 billion in PPP dollars go out the door. We just have $100 million to work with here. That's a lot of money, but it is a very small percentage of what we had in PPP. So we want to make sure we spread out these dollars to as many businesses as we can within the state. So that's why we set the grant at $25,000. It's needs-based, so the business must suffer a loss of revenue, top-line revenue, of 25% or more from pre-COVID to post-COVID. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to compare your revenue from 2019 or early 2020 to March through May of 2020. And as long as you've had a reduction of 25%, you can access the grant. I think PPP went to a lot of businesses that didn't really need it. And in this instance, we want to get the dollars to businesses that really do need it. A really good change, 501c6 organizations do qualify for this program. So chambers, economic development organizations that did not qualify for PPP do qualify for Oklahoma Business Relief Program, OBRP. So we're excited about that. There are no mandates for the grant expenditure. So once you get the $25,000, you can use it for anything that you wish. You know, the only requirement we have is that it's for an operating expense within the company. So you can't just take it out and go on Dr. Kuhn can't take it and go on a big cruise and then shut the business down. So we need it to be spent in the business, but you can spend it any way you want. You cannot use this grant for the same purpose as another CARES grant. So if you access PPP or the SBA EIDL program, you're golden. You can access this program. But if you're getting either city or county CARES money that just came in to the state, you just have to show that the purpose of the funds are different. So you might use our money for payroll, and you might use their money for inventory or marketing or something like that. Then you're fine. You just cannot use it for the same purpose that's in the act. And then, as I mentioned, you can apply for this if you've applied for PPP or EIDL. The timeline for this program is the applications are going to be available on the Commerce website starting at 8 a.m. on Monday, June the 29th. So this coming Monday at 8 a.m., the application will be available. You can go online, print it out. You can already see what you need if you go on the site right now, because we have rules and regulations laid out. It tells exactly the data you're going to need. But to fill out the application, you'll need to do that on Monday. Take it into a participating financial institution. CDFIs do qualify for this program, credit unions, banks, and you can go to the Commerce website and get access to a listing of those. So it is first come, first serve. So I would recommend getting involved early if you are interested in that. Those applications will be received until July the 10th. Disbursement of the money will begin on July the 17th. And so we'll just get the dollars out as fast as we can. We'll get them out the door. The business has to be located in Oklahoma. It has to be at least 51% Oklahoma owned. They have to be in good standing with the tax commission. They have to be in business on or before January the 1st of this year. All businesses qualify, nonprofit and for-profit. There are certain ineligible businesses or marijuana businesses, unfortunately, because they're not federally legal yet. They don't qualify. Banks don't qualify. Certain types of kind of adult-oriented businesses don't qualify. And all that is available on our website as well. So I just wanted to kind of mention that because I know that's going to be a really hot topic over the next few days for people trying to get used to that. And again, everything you need to know is at okcommerce.gov/relief. With all of this COVID-19 issues that we have had, Oklahoma actually fares very well during a time like this from an economic development perspective. So even though our businesses are struggling, we know they are struggling, we're doing our best to help, we know our unemployment rate is high, we are having great success and attraction. So we have 115 active projects right now. That's 115 businesses that are looking at relocating in Oklahoma. Last year, we brought 67 new businesses into the state, 33 of those new businesses located in a rural community. And that can happen for any number of reasons. It's when a company is looking to start or expand, they have a certain set of needs. And it doesn't always mean I want to be in Tulsa or Oklahoma City. It really doesn't. Sofidel is a really great example. This is an Italian paper company that is in Inola because they needed huge land. The only way that they could access that was to get outside of town. And so we are seeing tremendous growth in rural communities. We have 17 businesses looking at Oklahoma right now that are in California. We have had a very heavy marketing effort going on within California. You may have heard this previously, but we have a 5-state marketing strategy. Basically what we've done is we have targeted the 5 states that we feel like are very anti-business. And so we are placing our resources, calling efforts, direct mail, visits in California, Illinois, New York, Washington, and Colorado. Now, I will admit Colorado is not as bad as those other 4 from a business perspective, but it is the closest bad business state that we have. Most of the states around us are pretty business friendly. They are like number 13 on the bad business list, but the other 4 rank very, very highly on that list, and we are marketing to them very heavily right now. We do well because of our, we're less dense. We have minimal public transportation. We are a younger state than most. We have a hotter temperature. And so what is happening is a lot of businesses are opening up. Lifetime Fitness is an example. Dillard's is another example. They are opening up in Oklahoma first. So when they look at the whole country, they tend to open up here because not only do we have those advantages, but our people are more willing to re-engage now than many states within the country. We are really pitching. Some of you may have heard that we are in the finals for a company known as Tesla. Tesla is looking at Tulsa and Austin as the two finalists for a large gigaplant that they are going to build. It's a $4 billion investment. They will hire anywhere between starting out at 7,000 jobs, growing to 20,000 jobs. And so, as you may have read in the news, we have really thrown the kitchen sink at this one. We have certain economic incentives that we can provide. Most of them are tax rebates that they would pay to us. Not a whole lot of cash. We're more of a performance-based state when it comes to incentive, but we have been as creative as we know to be. I mean, we have, the community has done some pretty crazy things to get Tesla's attention. We are definitely the underdog, but when you think about the fact that we have gone from about 60 major cities and we are down to 2, we're very proud of that. And we've gotten huge press coverage. We're getting about 1,000 mentions a day on media across the world. That compares to about 5 before the Tesla deal. I personally have done countless national interviews with Fox and with Yahoo and with CBS and with everybody in the world because they're enamored with the underdog story. And so it allows us to tell the story of Oklahoma and why we believe it's such a great and kind of a best kept secret within the country. So that's been kind of fun. But the reason that we are in the game with them and these other 115 companies are, we have a great location. We're aligned for business, top to bottom. You don't have to worry about, some type of political ramification, to do business. We have a great quality of life. You can buy twice the house in Tulsa that you can in Austin. We have a 20-minute commute in both of our major cities. Our entertainment scenes have really gotten some great publicity in major magazines. We're top-tier manufacturing base. We have a great career tech and higher education system. We have the most inland port. And I mean, it just goes on and on. We're a great renewable energy state. There's just a lot of things that people don't know about Oklahoma that I could keep you on here forever, but you already know them. But that is why we are competing very, very well. The last things that I might mention that I think would be of interest to everyone, and then I'll open it up for questions as well. 2 new acts that have passed that really impact a lot of our businesses are, number one, the PPP Flexibility Act passed, which did a few things. It extended the program to December 31. It extended the 8 weeks to 24 weeks. It dropped the payroll ratio from 75% to 60%. It extended the deferral period from 6 months to 10 months, so they've got 10 months to make their payment. And it allowed a payroll tax deferment for borrowers who have had loans forgiven. Then the Main Street program that was rolled out by the Fed is basically for larger businesses who need capital. So they can come into a bank, the bank can approve them for the loan, and then the bank can sell 95% of that loan off to the Federal Reserve, which basically gets their risk way, way down. So there have been some nice changes to that program. The minimum amount is now $250,000. The maximum loan size goes up to $25 million on the new loan program. The loan repayment is 5 years. They've extended the repayment by delaying the principal to 2 years, principal repayment to 2 years, and they increase their participation to 95%. And then what I'll do is I'll just kind of close with our rural specific programs within Commerce. So first of all, for the first time, we went into our closing fund and set aside 20% of those dollars just to be used for rural economic development. So we always want to make sure we have dollars available to attract businesses to rural Oklahoma. We have a new public-private partnership legislation that was just passed that is really great for rural communities to put in infrastructure for small businesses. Quality jobs program and small quality jobs programs are heavily used within rural Oklahoma, our investment tax credit is used heavily within rural. We have a statewide beef processing task force that I know Ms. Lee Denny, Director Denny is on with Brent and Secretary Arthur. Our REAP program, Rural Economics Assistance Program, saw a huge increase in funding last year, and we were able to maintain that funding this year, even in light of cuts across state budget. And we are now administering a ton of CARES money through CDBG block grants, the Community Support Block Grant Program, and others. So a lot of these go through your community action agencies, but we are getting millions and millions of dollars into rural Oklahoma through those programs. So with that, Riley, that gives me 2 minutes to the end of my segment, and I'd be happy to answer any questions as well. And let me just stress to everyone, because there may be a lot of questions about this business relief program. We're not going to have time to get into those today, obviously, but I really encourage you to go to okcommerce.gov/relief, and everything you want to know is there, or you can email OBRP, Oklahoma Business Relief Program, OBRP at okcommerce.gov, and they can answer any questions that you might have. So, Riley, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Sean, for jumping into a pretty heavy ag conversation today. We certainly appreciate the work you're doing in the state and appreciate your attendance here today. We do have a few minutes, and so if there are any questions here for the Department of Commerce, feel free to jump in the chat box or unmute yourself. So we'll wait a few seconds to see if we've got anything.
Thank you, Megan, for putting up that website on the business relief program. That's great.
Sean, will you share the email address one more time, and Megan will share that with the group?
Absolutely. It's OBRP, and unfortunately that sounds like OBURP. We didn't really think about that as we were planning the name of the program. I didn't. I named the program. So OBRP at okcommerce.gov. That's how you can ask us any questions. And we're super accessible. I'm a business person. I do run cattle with my dad. I'm a full-time banker, and then do this commerce gig. That's my volunteer job on the side. And so we have really stressed to our team the importance of responsiveness and getting back to people. And so I think you'll be very pleased. So if you need anything, if you need any access to our programs, if there's anything we can help you all with, please feel free to reach out. My email is just Sean, S-E-A-N, well, it's on the screen there, sean.copeland@okcommerce.gov, and I respond to all my emails every day. So if I can help you all, just let me know.
Thanks again, Sean. We certainly have found that to be true in the organization of this event, and look forward to connecting folks to resources that are available there in Oklahoma. So thanks again for joining us. Appreciate you all.
Thank you, Riley.
All right, so with that being said, we have time for another quick break. We certainly want to keep you energized for our last set of presentations here, covering 2 additional buckets of the Rural Prosperity Task Force reports and recommendations. Before we do, I just wanted to give you a quick bonus presentation. It'll take about 30 seconds. USDA's Farmers Feed Families Food Box program is live. Some of you might be familiar with that. It's a $3 billion program coming out of USDA that provides relief and assistance to distributors. So essentially, distributors would pick up food from producers. There's dairy boxes, there's produce boxes, there's meat boxes, and then would deliver those, distributors with the capacity would deliver those to nonprofit organizations, area food banks, to get food boxes to hungry people. And so I'm about to share the website to you in the chat. If you'd like to find more information, or if you'd like to understand how you can get access to those food boxes, you can visit this link. Something else that you should know is we didn't go live with all $3 billion worth of awards. Word on the street is that we're preparing that next round. And so if you're interested in pursuing opportunities for about $1.8 billion worth of awards and making up that $3 billion, then certainly check back in with us and we'll get you the information that you need. With that being said, we're going to take about a 15-minute break. We will reconvene here at 10:45 a.m. As a reminder, maybe mute your lines, go off screen, but don't lose connection. It's easier to stay put, but we'll see you back here at 10:45. Thanks again. All right, welcome back to the virtual Oklahoma Community Prosperity Summit. We've had a great morning thus far, lots of dynamic speakers and some pretty good questions too. Just a reminder, this is being recorded for future use, and questions, we're open to questions at any time. You can put them in the chat feature or you can mention them online. Just unmute yourselves. Until then, feel free to take your video off and mute your phone unless you'd like to discuss something. We're trucking right along with our third bucket of the Rural Prosperity and Ag Task Force recommendations. We're entering workforce development. I know a lot of you, when you were registering, you mentioned that this was something you are very interested in. And so whether we're talking about K through 12 or collegiate workforce development, or folks that are going straight to the workforce after some type of formal or informal schooling, we got lots to discuss in this next 30 minutes. So I'm going to introduce our set of speakers for this particular session. Many of them will come as no surprise to you as experts in the field, and then I'll let them transition from one to another so that I don't waste any time coming in the middle. First, we have Dr. Tom Kuhn with Oklahoma State University, Dr. Wesley Whitaker with Langston University, Miko Tyner with College of the Muskogee Nation, and Truett Eubank, also with College of the Muskogee Nation. So Dr. Kuhn, we'll start with you. Floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Riley. And perhaps one of the best things I could say about the impact that we have in workforce development is to just list the names of the people who are speaking on this program today, beginning with you, Riley, as a graduate of not only of OSU, but of our Ferguson College of Agriculture. And others have mentioned Dr. Denny, Mr. Biggs, Mr. O'Neill, Secretary Arthur, Secretary Copeland, all are graduates of OSU and actually graduates of our college. Of course, we have Congressman Frank Lucas, another graduate of OSU and our college. Even Undersecretary of Food Safety, who was mentioned earlier, Dr. Mindy Brashears earned her doctorate here at OSU, and of course, Governor Stitt's a graduate of OSU as well. So it does reflect sort of our perspective on what our role is as a land-grant institution. If you could advance me to the next slide. So I'm going to speak primarily about what we do in the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources. We think of that kind of as the really focal point of our land-grant mission within our division. But I do want to mention that we work with other parts of OSU as well. And so some of these comments really are reflective of all of OSU. So for example, the College of Veterinary Medicine, we provide some support for the college and work very closely with Dean Carlos Risco, who's on this webinar, and his faculty in delivering programs on animal well-being and animal herd management and so on. Also the College of Education and Human Sciences, Dean Stephen Wilson, and a lot of the work that they do in human nutrition, we work in concert with them in both in research and extension. Earlier, Secretary Arthur mentioned Dr. Robinson's work on the Rural Renewal Initiative, and of course, a lot of the people working on that, it is a program, a new program at OSU, and it's actually coming out of the Vice President for Research office. But of course, many of the people working on it are faculty members and students within our Ferguson College of Agriculture. But Dr. Tyson Ochsner, Dr. Shane Robinson are providing leadership for that and involving the Center for Rural Health, for example, from the OSU Center for Health Sciences. So we work in concert with the other colleges as well. But I did want to mention that those particular relationships that we have within the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources. Of course, we have really the three legs of the land-grant mission, the academic programs that are the responsibility of the Ferguson College of Agriculture. I serve as the dean. Dr. Cinda Clary is the associate dean, provides day-to-day leadership for that. OSU Extension, Dr. Damona Doy is the associate vice president for Extension, also really based within our division. And then the research arm, the experiment station, we call it OSU Ag Research. really is that as well. So the Go OK State is really a link to all of OSU, the OSU website, and I'll have other websites on subsequent slides that talk a little bit more about that. If we go to the next slide, I'll talk very specifically about workforce development. So we think of that first and foremost in our academic programs. And so within our Ferguson College, we have about 2,800 undergraduate students, about 500 graduate students, representing 45 states, 32 nations, quite a diverse student body, and really a wide variety of opportunities. In a way, we're sort of a university within a university when you look at the breadth from business to biochemistry to agronomy to landscape architecture and so on. But what's common about all of those is that we really have a focus on preparing for careers in agribusiness, in crop production, in horticulture, in finance, and so on. And in fact, finance is one of those that we actually have quite an impact in finance. If you look at the banks or farm credit organizations in the state, including Secretary Copeland, who happens to be president of a bank, and a graduate of our Department of Agricultural Economics, we actually prepare quite a few of the people who are in leadership roles in finance in our state institutions, supporting agriculture certainly, but more broadly business as well. So we really focus on creating opportunities for students to learn what they need to, the content, but also to gain the experience and the life skills that are important, intercultural competency, communication skills, leadership skills, critical thinking, financial responsibility. All of those are really, I think, are hallmarks of what we do to try to prepare people for these careers and do the best we can to help them find career opportunities in Oklahoma. And many of those are in rural communities across Oklahoma. Next slide is about cooperative extension. I'm sorry, it's about ag research. And just to say that we, again, the breadth of our college is reflected in everything from very specific aspects of plant genetics. Our wheat improvement team produces wheat varieties that are really well suited to the agronomic systems that we have in Oklahoma, including the emphasis on grazing as one facet of wheat production. And so we have 22 varieties of wheat on the market currently that come from the OSU wheat breeding program, and they represent more than 50% of the wheat that's grown in Oklahoma. So we really look to have an impact on the agricultural production systems in ways like that. A lot of research that we have going on in animal production that includes herd health management as well as nutrition, and on the marketing side as well. And of course, there's been tremendous disruption to livestock marketing here really over the last year almost, beginning with the fire in Kansas back in August last year. And so Dr. Darrell Peel, Dr. Kelly Raper both provide insights on that and research that helps us understand that better. We do a lot with the diversity of Oklahoma's ecosystems and the grasslands in particular that are so critical to our agricultural as well as our wildlife systems. Of course, forestry is a big part of the state's land-based industries, and within regulatory responsibilities for that, of course, fall within Secretary Arthur's agency, and we try to prepare people for careers in that as well. So quite a variety of things that we're doing research on there. Food safety and food processing, very important. The food and agricultural products here on campus is really unique. It's one of the few like it in the country. It is really outward focused, and so we do have research going on there. If we could go to the next slide on extension, the Food and Ag Products Center really represents that merger of research and extension missions in one entity and in the faculty and staff that we have there. So we do a lot of work with food industries on helping them understand safe food handling practices, how they can be responsive to the regulatory environment that they're in, everything from what needs to be on the label, if you've got a new product that you want to take to market, to helping you with the financial aspect, marketing, the science behind the food processing, all of that. We do a lot of training on food safety, particularly in the commercial enterprises in the state. And we also have a facility, it's a USDA inspected harvest facility for livestock that is used in part in our teaching mission, but also really we do a lot there to help people understand the industry, understand grading cattle and that kind of thing, and seeing that through to the final consumer-based product. So it really reflects that merger of research and extension. Some of our other extension programs, of course, workforce development begins at birth, right? And so our early childhood programs that we do through our county extension offices with nutrition, for example, our nutrition education programs are geared towards that. 4-H youth development, of course, is the youth development program within OSU Extension that we really try to focus on creating that excitement in young people, building on the excitement that they have to learn and create opportunities for them to explore safely and at the same time learn the life skills that will prepare them for their careers. So that's a really important part for us. And then, of course, we do a lot of direct assistance on the agricultural side with livestock operations for homeowners, consumers. There's a lot of interest in landscaping and quite an industry in providing services in landscaping. So we do try to provide, address those needs as well, really uniquely positioned. In fact, we recently filled a position in horticulture for a faculty member who's working specifically in local and small agricultural production systems that lead to food, to farmers markets and things like that. So there's a lot that we do. We as I mentioned, a lot of the people who are graduates of our agricultural economics department, I just want to point out that that's a department that really has a lot of strength in rural development and in community development. So a number of our faculty have expertise in that. Dr. Amy Hagerman has led a group this year in coming up with a series of reports on how has COVID affected rural communities across Oklahoma. And so those reports will be coming out in the near future. Dr. Brian Whitaker, I believe he's on this webinar as well. Great expertise in rural broadband, and I know he's worked very closely with Dr. Denny and her crew, and we're going to hear more about that, I think, in the speakers following the workforce development. So let me stop there. There's a lot more that I'd love to say, but I also want to make sure that we have time to hear from our colleagues at Langston University and the College of Muskogee Nation. So I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Wesley Whitaker, the Dean of School of Agriculture Sciences at Langston University.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kuhn. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Good.
It is a real joy for me to be with you all today to participate in this extremely important Community Prosperity Summit. I'm someone that actually grew up and worked for many years in rural communities, and so this is my kind of a conference. The tremendous value in the contributions of rural communities and often underserved populations is without question. Rural communities and underserved people make extraordinary contributions to economic development. I want to join with other speakers in commending OPPE and ODAF and others for making this particular summit a reality. I know we've been talking about it for some time, and it has been mentioned also that it is truly amazing the difference that only a few short months has actually made in our lives. This conference probably would normally have been face-to-face, where all of us could meet and sort of greet everyone personally. But then came the horrible pandemic that has completely changed our circumstances and changed many of our plans. But such is life. Someone says nature is the master. Very often It dictates much of the things that we do. By training, Dr. Kuhn, you mentioned you're agricultural economist. By training, I'm an economist and focused on rural and economic development for a number of years, working for many years in the Mississippi Delta and in other areas. And hence, the Rural Task Force report, when it was published, it really intrigued me very, very deeply because of the focus that it actually placed on programs and policies to increase the capacity of rural underserved communities, the extent to which it sought to enhance innovation and technology and to shine a really bright light on workforce development that I'm very, very interested in, to improve the quality of life of people, of rural people, of underserved people, and effectively seeking to improve economic development. I'm particularly delighted that leaders, both at the national level, at the local level, are actually coming together as we are today in this particular summit to address many of the common issues that afflict many of our local communities, and simultaneously are seeking to devise appropriate people-centric policies to help alleviate many of the problems that a vast number of our communities, especially the underserved, are actually facing. Because of the rapid pace of change in many communities, because of technology and population changes, other factors, and then now the pandemic that has disproportionately affected many of the underserved population. Workforce development is one of the core channels, in my view, to which sustainable economic development and growth can be achieved, as well as prosperity for all. It must be a priority for all of us that are here today, workers, employers, community as a whole, educational institutions. There's no doubt that it is all of our responsibility. It really is all of our responsibility to ensure that potential workers in agriculture, in industry, in commerce, and in other disciplines have the right skills, the right training, and the right exposure to adapt to economic and social changes and be able to meet the challenges of an ever-evolving economy while finding good paying jobs in all respect. A skilled workforce that is matched to the needs of employers is absolutely necessary for all economies, both rural and urban, to grow and to prosper, and for people to reach their full potential, their full God-given potential. For me personally, who serves in the academic space like Dr. Kuhn, and have been doing it for a number of years and now serve as the Dean here at Langston, spending a lot of time nurturing young minds and working with young children, the future of tomorrow. It really is critical that we're doing all that we can to prepare that next generation of what I call workforce-ready individuals for all our communities and also for the generations to come. The duty to do so lies with all of us as educators, as practitioners, as policymakers, and as communities as a whole. In this regard, we must be building a workforce that is beautifully diverse and that has extraordinary strength. A diverse community, and I think of it personally, it is a community with strength, and we must not fail in our effort to do so. One of the observations that I have made in working with many rural and urban students is that very often they do not get the opportunity to serve internships during their college careers. Hence, after graduation, many of them, they do not have the necessary hands-on experience that some employers require for lucrative employers. They go into an interview and the first question they ask is about the experience that you have. And for that, and potentially all the reasons, if and when they get hired, the attachment to the jobs and what we in economics call the stickiness to the workforce tend to be quite weak. This generally affects many aspects of work, many aspects of productivity, many aspects of economic contributions, and may even have long-term social and economic consequences. And so one of the strategies that we are seeking to reimagine here at Langston University is to build partnerships with employers in many different companies and organizations that may offer experiential learning opportunities or internships to students during the college years, during the end of the freshman year, the sophomore year, the end of the junior year. And while they serve in these internship positions, they are simultaneously mentored by professionals in those companies and organizations. I know that this makes a difference because I've been there. This approach has made a significant difference and actually prepares students for many, many available jobs. It builds mentoring relationship that is also critically important in many companies, and at the same time, help employers to find and retain good workers with skills, with experience, and with the aptitude that they need.
Maybe we figured out a connection.
Yeah. I mentioned this example. I mentioned this example because it reflects one approach as to what workforce development really is about. And that is investing in work, investing in workers of all kinds, which lead to greater employability and employment opportunity for all. It's important to note that the more people that we have working and contributing tangibly to economic activities, the more robust economic growth and development and prosperity will be. If we have a fraction of the population that is not fully workforce ready, the contribution to economic development will be relatively small. And so at Langston, we are very actively seeking to join in partnership with several companies and organizations in order to provide internships to our students. There are times when we have funding from external sources that may be able to provide and remuneration for the students. And so in many cases, we ask the company not necessarily for payment to the student, because we know how budgets are sometimes. And so if you cannot provide payment to student, we may be able to pay those students from external funds. But all that we need is for them to be provided the opportunity in the company and to provide the mentoring that I know will be lasting. In our programs, we have agribusiness, we have plant science, we have natural resource management, we have animal science, and many of you may know about the extraordinary goat and sheep research program that we have here at Langston. We have family and consumer sciences. And these are all programs for which we are seeking to find internship opportunities for our students. Many of these students, during the summertime, they go and they work, and I call no job a menial, but they go and work in small jobs and in order to provide resources for their families without actually building on their careers. These internships will make an extraordinary difference in their lives. Langston University is definitely, as Dr. Kuhn said, we are one of the 1890 land grant university, work very closely with Dr. Kuhn at OSU. We do have extraordinary partnerships with OPPE and several other USDA bodies. We work closely with many of our local agencies. We work with community-based organizations quite integrally, both in academic programs and research and extension programs. The Oklahoma Black Historical Research Project is one of the groups that has been consistent in supporting us in a number of things that we have done. And so through our academic and our research and extension and outreach programs, we will continue to work together to solve many of the pressing problems and many of those difficult challenges that our communities and our budding workforce often experience. In so doing, we are going to continue to be advocates for building a sustainable workforce for all of us. We will be fully supportive of those who are traditionally underserved and those who very often, for no reason of their own, have very little sometimes. We are going to do all that we can to support them as much as we possibly can. Let us do all we can, all of us here today, to train and develop that next generation of workforce-ready individuals, of the leaders of tomorrow. These are our children, they are our neighbors, and they are our friends. Again, I thank you very much for this opportunity. It's an extraordinary opportunity for us to come together to share in these very, very important concepts that obviously came out of the Rural Task Force report, which I believe is an extraordinary document, guide for us all to work with as we go forward. Again, thank you so very much. And if there are questions, I'll be very, very happy to respond.
Thanks again, Dr. Whitaker and Dr. Kuhn. We appreciate y'all. We'll take questions at the end after the College of the Muskogee Nation, if that's okay. Before we turn it over to them, I just want to point out something that some of you might not know, and that Dr. Kuhn reminded us again on Monday when we were preparing for this call, but very proud to work with, of course, Oklahoma State University, Langston, and College of the Muskogee Nation, as Oklahoma is the only state with all three types of land grant universities. In 1862, in 1890, and in 1994. And so we're very proud of that. We're excited to work with all of you on this issue and on others. So with that being said, we'd love to introduce College of the Muskogee Nation.
Este amigo Kanja Jip Kados, I greet you with the Gomagadi, a good spiritual greeting to you. We're happy to be a part of this discussion. Thank you, Riley, for inviting us. The College of Muskogee Nation, we're a new tribal college. We were established in 2004. We became a land grant institution in 2014, and we became initially accredited by HLC in 2016. We have 6 degree programs, and one of them is our natural resources, which is a very new program. It's been on our campus for about a year now. I'm currently serving as a registrar, and right now, since we're such a small tribal college, we don't have like a career development, but we do have different types of internships that we offer our students through Great Lakes. We have 8 USDA grants that we have worked on and currently working on. In this past year, we started partnering with OSU and Langston through our coming together for racial understanding. We all convened up in Minneapolis to learn to go through this program to help educate each other about our different cultures. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Truett here, and he's going to talk a little bit more about our internships and our students and our programs.
Got it. Thank you for letting me be here. We will be completing our first year of our natural resource degree program in August. And we've been quite busy trying to serve our students. The one thing that we're trying to do, of course, is to build up our numbers, and we're doing that through outreach. And one of the focuses of the outreach is basically to let our students know what job opportunities or opportunities for further advancement are present. And so in doing so, we've gone through several programs. One, we just completed a agreed internship for employment with a couple of travel golf courses for our students that are interested in agronomy and turf grass. We also will then incorporate field trips and internships to some turf farms outside the Porter region. Our big thing is, as you can see in the slide, we have on site a working greenhouse as well as a 5-bed, quarter-acre each bed cultural garden that we use to not only train and teach our students such things as organic fertilization, rotation, companion crop development, but we're also using both the greenhouse and our gardens to provide food for our campus cafes as part of our land grant agreement. We are now employing drone usage. We are going to be working with both Travel Extension Service as well as Leslie Lewis, our county extension agent, to teach both our students as well as our landowners around here the ability to use the drones for field erosion, irrigation practices, as well as fertilization practices. We just recently, prior to COVID, hosted the Region 4 ACES conference. That went very well, where our students put on the rainfall simulator demonstration, as well as allowed students to learn how to program using the drones for pattern and grid distribution. We have students at this moment working at the pollinator farm, the UG Butterfly Farm. We are collaborating with our Travel Extension Service on milpa field production with the hope of coming up with some good cover crops that also can provide our local landowners potentially good cover for dove and quail and pheasant. We are then looking at a research collaboration grant with Langston University that we had pretty much come to an agreement, but we haven't heard from since the COVID crisis. And of course, as I talked with Riley earlier, our hope is to get our students into USDA internships, as well as working with NRCS National Resource Conservation Service internships. So our goal is to give Dr. Kuhn, Dr. Whitaker, and others good students for the next degree program of their choice. That's us at the college in the Muskogee Nation.
Yeah, at the college, we are on the agriculture part. We're really focusing on the culture, and so we're trying to teach our students about our ancestors and connecting with them. And one of the ways that we do that is through our corn. Today, the Muskogee Nation, we still have our ceremonials that we utilize our corn, our green corn ceremony that occurs now during the summertime. And so this last slide is a picture of our former work study. One of his goals was to learn about corn, and he wanted to make a buskey, which is a traditional sweet drink made from parched corn that's parched in wood ash. We parched it in oak wood ash, and after that, the process is to grind it up and make it into a drink. And so we have some of our children learning that as well. So our students and our children. Thank you for the time that you provide for us, and we're happy to answer any questions as well.
Great, thanks again. We appreciate the heck out of you all joining today. A great presentation on workforce development, hoping that those of you participating in today's discussion were able to learn from all 4 of our presenters. We do have a few minutes for questions for our experts. They certainly know more about the subject than do I, and so feel free to insert a comment in the chat feature or unmute yourself and ask the question at this time. We'll wait a few seconds. All right, with that being said, thanks so much for joining us today. We've posted the links in the chat feature, and we'll be sure to follow up with all of you afterwards with these presentations. Thanks again, we appreciate you all.
Thank you, Riley.
All right, without any further ado, would love to move to our next presentation on innovation and technology. This has not only been one of the workforce or the task force recommendations with Secretary Perdue, but also one of Secretary Perdue's emphasis areas. You've probably seen in headlines, lots of support for rural broadband and technology all across the country. And so what better way to discuss that very important issue than bringing, in my opinion, two of the experts in the area to you today. And so we'll start today's presentation with Shekinah Pepper, a USDA General Field Representative for Alaska and Oklahoma. So Shekinah, we're turning it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I am actually the Kansas and Alaska General Field Rep. I also covered Oklahoma last year and Maine, and then I'm also currently acting as the General Field Rep Supervisor for the Southern United States. So I've got a lot of hats on, and I've worn a lot of hats. And I'm near and dear to Oklahoma. I also served with the Army Corps of Engineers there in Tulsa, managing waterways and shorelines and civil works projects. So there's a lot of connection with Oklahoma that I have. So USDA's telecom division for rural development has 5 basic programs. We have 4 of them are for broadband emphasis. One of them is for distance learning and telemedicine. So I kind of want to touch on those and what's going on in Oklahoma. The big program that everybody has heard a lot about, it's been in the news everywhere, is our Reconnect program. But what a lot of people haven't heard is that we're now currently in round 2 of the Reconnect program, and our field staff, your current Oklahoma GFR, is actually out in the field reviewing applications under this program, and that's the reason why I'm here to help share some of the workload. Under round 1, Oklahoma received 7 awards for $72 million coming to Oklahoma, and that was #1 in the nation for the most number of awards under the Reconnect program and the most dollars for any state. The second thing that you haven't heard is that Oklahoma is tied for first place in round 2 for the most applications. 11 applications with a dollar value that I can't release yet as they're still in the process of being reviewed. But I think that speaks very highly to what's going on in Oklahoma and the emphasis not only from the state level, but from the local level. These programs are required to be applied by an actual telecom or an ISP, internet support or provider. And so we have a large group of individuals, telcos, ISPs, broadband providers in Oklahoma that are really trying to reach out and expand and serve. And a lot of this has been coordinated also on the state level with the state new broadband office and the state broadband coordinator, which is Sonia Wall, that has really started to bring people together to try to emphasize broadband development, broadband growth in Oklahoma. And we're seeing the efforts of that come out in these kind of programs. And what we're seeing in round 1 and round 2 is a very, very active broadband program in Oklahoma. And that's not counting our telecom program, and our broadband programs that are separate funding sources that have more loan components to them than they do grant component, like the Reconnect program, which Oklahoma is also leading in those categories over the last couple of years for applications and activity. One of the programs I want to talk about is Can-Okla-Scheidler, which is in Osage area of Oklahoma. Can-Okla is a company that I'm very near and dear to my heart. They're also one of my companies that serves here in Kansas. Can-Okla-Scheidler is a co-op company that bought Can-Okla-Scheidler back in 2017 and was looking for a way to expand their services and to serve better the areas that they had just bought. They brought this new area that they bought into their co-op family, and then through the Reconnect program have received funding to build out the entire area with fiber to the home. But much more than that, our local ISPs and broadband providers provide a technical resource in the community beyond just providing that internet service. And so coordinating and partnerships between these groups is very important. And one of the things that made this project possible is the coordination between our National Office of Tribal Coordination, the local Osage Nation, the company, local regional economic development, and even individual citizens. Some of the things that we look at when we're looking at funding a source is the involvement from local communities. And so that's really where the communities can get involved to help these projects become successful. And why they have to be applied through an actual provider, one of the things that we look at is the overall stability of that community's build out and how actively involved that community is in making sure that these projects are successful. So Oklahoma has a great jump start on really kind of building out the areas that are not built out under broadband. The other thing I really want to kind of focus on is our grant side of it. Oklahoma has received 22 Community Connect Awards. This is our community-focused contiguous broadband build-out program. They're #1 in the nation in most Community Connect Awards, by almost double the next closest state. And this just further shows the dedication to your local providers to try to build out broadband in areas that don't have any level of service. And not only that, but to make sure that they can do it through the grants in a manner that they can provide quality broadband service at an economical price. The next one, and you know, there was Secretary Blaine and some of the other people earlier talked about making Oklahoma that top 10 state. And I think that there's a lot of metrics out there that are very difficult to look at, but in a lot of our views, Oklahoma is in that top 10, if not in the top 5 in a lot of things that we're looking at. So I want to go to our distance learning telemedicine program. I think it's one thing to build out broadband, another thing to use it and to capitalize on everything broadband can do. It's one thing to watch Netflix and to, you know, buy things on Amazon and to watch cat videos, but it's another thing to really capitalize on what broadband can bring from an economic development standpoint. And that comes to our DLT program, our distance learning telemedicine program. Oklahoma is currently #2 in most awards with about $17 million in awards to buy equipment to put into our schools, hospitals, communities to expand distance learning and telemedicine. This grant specifically funds the equipment aspect of building out these facilities to connect providers with rural areas and to increase the reach of education and the reach of healthcare across Oklahoma. Oklahoma is second only to Maine, which has received 62 grants. And so while I've talked about a lot of the great things that Oklahoma is doing, one of the things I want to tell you is that there's still room to improve. There's still more that you can do. And so I want to touch on some different areas that states are doing that I think are really kind of innovative that I think you can bring to Oklahoma. So Maine, as I said, I covered Maine for about 1.5 years because of retirement. And one of the things I saw there was a really robust in-home healthcare they were using our DLT program to build out. And what they saw is they have an elderly population that they didn't want to lose from the rural areas. They didn't want to have to move, and they didn't want to have to build a senior citizen centers that maybe in 10 to 15 years, they wouldn't be able to get millennials to move into. So what they've looked at doing is providing that in-home health care so that people can stay in their homes longer and still receive that top-notch level of care. The other state that's really doing some really cool things as far as the distance learning and telemedicine is Alaska, which actually ranks right below Oklahoma in the most amount of awards. However, one of the things I think that Alaska is doing really well is they're very innovative in how they're delivering distance learning and telemedicine. And to be honest with you, that's because they have to be innovative because of the environment up there. Some of the things that we're seeing in Alaska, just to give you an example, is we have a small town, Glen Allen, Alaska, and Copper River School District that has a student population of 430 some students. This year, they currently offer 507 class options. They have more class options than they do students. AvTech, which is the Alaska Botanic School, is working on a virtual reality simulation program, training program to train harbor workers for Seward, which they can't recruit enough people to. And then when they get there, they still have to go through the training. So what they're doing is they're building a virtual environment where harbor workers can actually train in the Seward Harbor on how to navigate buoys, how to drive a tugboat, how to tie off the tugboat, so they can get their certifications before they even move there. These are some of the innovative things that they're trying to work on to be able to train people, to bring people in to do that. Oklahoma already has a great wealth of locations that have distance learning and telemedicine. But I think that the step that you can make forward is involving your community with a partnership between Department of Commerce, between Department of Ag, and your local communities to figure out, okay, what are the skill sets that we really need? And then how can we deliver these in a more innovative way via distance? When you look at what technology is evolving to, I think that we have to look at how we're changing our education system and how we're being creative about all of the things technology can allow us to do. And I think that's one of the positives that has come out of COVID is people are realizing that things like this are possible. You know, a few years ago, you know, having a virtual meeting like this would not have even been a thought process. Thinking about how we're educating people when they're staying at home or working from home. And people are really starting to see the opportunities that are available there. But this is so much more than just Zoom calls. This is actually getting hands-on opportunities to build that. We have groups that are looking at robotics training, and they're doing it via distance learning, where a robot is in a completely different area than the teacher and a completely different area than the instructor, but they're able to do that through the broadband connectivity. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities to not only just say, hey, how do we put in place the technology that's available, but how do we plan for the future? How do we get rid of our current thinking of brick and mortar and look at all of the possibilities to improve training? There are groups out there that are actually doing mental health counseling in VR environments. Especially with vets that are suffering from PTSD, because a mental health provider can actually go into a combat situation that maybe is giving the vet a very hard time, and in a virtual safe environment can help them overcome those fears and work through them. And that's not even something you can do in a face-to-face, you know, setting. So there's a lot of things out there when we're talking about being innovative that can really take that a step further and give us more opportunity. But what really comes from, and I think the action step to take forward from this, is from a community. How are you helping to drive what is going on in your community? How are you working with, you know, regional economic development people to figure out what businesses want for certifications? You know, it's one thing to do a precision ag program, but if John Deere isn't tied into how you're doing that and you're not getting the right certifications or the right training, then they're not going to be able to have jobs. So it's tying all of these things together in a partnership across silos. And too often, you know, we get into the silos that we're ag, we're commerce, we're education, we're healthcare, but rather crossing those to figure out how we can prepare people with that workforce development to make sure that they're coming out of high school and being able to walk straight into jobs and continuing their education where they're at, so that we can keep our youth in our community. And this is what broadband and technology and distance learning is allowing us to do. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunities to take how great you've done and just to take it a step further and bring the communities together to talk about how we can make these programs successful. One of the things that we have seen with our distance learning program is that the more the community is involved in the development, in the creation of the services that are going to be provided, in the activities that are going to be going on in these programs, the better success we see out of the program. So really stepping across those lines, bringing people together, like this kind of summit, to talk about how we can come together and synergize these different activities is very important. And with that, I will pass it off to Mr. Kirk.
Thanks, Shekinah. Really appreciate it. It was a great discussion. And for us at Osage Nation, I think one of the highlights that Shekinah really just went over specifically was really the collaboration and cooperative aspect of the opportunities that are presented for us. And he's exactly right. Technology is the one commonality between really everything, whether it's public safety or agriculture or education or telemedicine. Technology really bridges that gap for everything. And one of the great things that really has come out of an event like this, you learn about these possibilities and opportunities for funding and for even resources for really determining how you go about addressing your lack of broadband in an area. And using Osage County, which I'm most familiar with, obviously, since I'm with Osage Nation, we had a tremendous lack of broadband just over the last few years. We've seen a lot of improvement. We've got a huge area, about 2,300 square miles, with about 50,000 people in it. So it's a very, very rural environment. but we're seeing things change because of the federal funding and things that have been allocated for broadband. Working with people like Ken Oakler-Scheidler and Total Communications also, which is another Reconnect recipient, and coordinating their efforts with the things that we have going on from a tribal perspective. We have some funding that we put towards broadband within our own community, and things that we're trying to get accomplished with all of our other partners that really have a vested interest in seeing the broadband improved in our area. And I kind of like what Shkai said a little while ago about the quality of life aspect. Yeah, it's Netflix and there's some of the other things that really have some bearing as well. They're not nearly as important, obviously, as being able to work from home remotely, or to be able to take care of your educational opportunities remotely, or as Shkai also said, with the mental health or any other telemedicine type of work and activities that you really can't even take part in if you do not have that broadband in place. So it's extremely important to develop these collaborative efforts with the other people, other stakeholders in your community, to make these things happen. Starting out with the great folks of Lee Beatty and her group in Stillwater and the USDA and rural utility services, the funding that they've made available for trying to overcome the situation, it's a golden opportunity really to come in and make those applications, draw on those resources to get your own programs kicked off. And that's really what we've tried to do at Osage Nation is take it from the dismal area where we were at and really try and improve this incrementally throughout our county. And it's been a long, hard road, and we're still fighting a lot of different battles in various areas, but we're seeing those improvements, and we're seeing these opportunities present themselves where we didn't have it before. And one of the things that, we talked about this a couple times this morning, the COVID pandemic really has kind of had a little bit of a silver lining from a technology aspect, because it has proven the worth and the need for technology and what you can do if you have that technology in place. Having meetings like this, being able to work from home and still be productive, have your kids have the opportunity to keep up with their schoolwork, have your elders have the opportunity to stay in connection with their doctors and their care providers. Things that broadband really is the instrumental, the basis for making all that possible. And I'll just use my dad for an example. He just was able to stay connected with his heart surgeon, his other people he needs to stay connected with on a normal basis, simply because he had the ability to do that from home. Where he lives, fortunately, he did have that broadband available. Had he lived in an area where it's not available, you really would, becomes a life safety issue by not having broadband. So we've been fortunate at Osage Nation. Our leadership has seen the need for it, and it's obviously been enhanced because of the pandemic, but they saw the need for it early, and we were able to work with RUS and USDA to be able to get our initial infrastructure going, and then partnering with the other community stakeholders like the state, the county, and other municipalities. We're able to really kind of start to extend this foothold so we can progressively take over what's going on within the county and improve the situation for everyone. Again, in a lot of cases in rural America, the things that we're dealing with in Osage County is very similar to what everybody else is dealing with. You've got vast areas where you don't have coverage, you don't have what you need in place. It just seems like so much to try and overcome all at one time. And there's no need really to look at it that way. You take it incrementally, you eat the elephant one bite at a time. Make that initial reach out to USDA or to your local university that you can really speak with, and take a look at your current situation and ways to address that in a progressive manner. Again, don't look at it too much all at one time, because it becomes very, very hard to really digest. But we've been again, like I say, very fortunate at Osage Nation that we have been able to go out and we have received a couple of Community Connect grants. And then we've had recipients in our area that have got the Reconnect funds, like Scheidler, Ken Oakler, and Tota, and then be able to work with them to coordinate the effectiveness of what we're doing with our Community Connect grants, along with what they're doing with the Reconnect funding, and then be able to develop that partnership and that relationship. So as we move forward, we can continue to make those very, very effective additions to what's going on within the county. And it's been a wonderful community to work with, because I think everyone that we've been involved with, at least in our area, has been very, very willing to make that collaborative effort and to stay focused on the overall goal. And that's really improving the situation for the entire community at large. So we don't really leave anybody out where we can. And that's what we're really trying to accomplish. And we've been extremely fortunate and happy with what we've been able to accomplish so far. And we're really excited and looking forward to the future. And being able to tie all this back together again with economic development, with workforce development, it really makes all the sense in the world. And I just urge everybody that's on the call, please reach out to your local community, talk to them about the things that where their shortfalls are at, and help them to come together with an effort and reach out to the USDA to begin with, reach out to the state, to the folks that were on this call today, and draw these resources together so you can make a positive impact on your situation in the area that you're in. And if anyone has any questions about how we've proceeded on things with Osage Nation, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to let you know the things that we've done and the mistakes we've made, because we've made plenty of them. But again, don't let that stop anybody from making that first effort and reaching out and trying to improve the situation in your area. I'm going to finish up, I guess, a couple minutes early here. That's about all I've got. If I can help anyone, be sure to let me know, and I'll pass it back off to Riley or Coach, whichever's coming up next.
Mark, thank you so much. Does anyone in the group have any questions for either Shekinah or Mark? All right, lots of good stuff there. Shekinah, thanks again for taking time to discuss with us. Lee Denny has sang your praises over and over, says you're the expert in the field, and so we certainly appreciate your time today. Mark, thanks to you and the Osage Nation for all of your partnership work with USDA and beyond. It was great to have you on today. Also want to recognize Trent Cassee with the Muskogee Creek Nation, who's on the call today. We certainly appreciate your friendship and partnership also. If any of you are a tribal representative or a tribal member or have questions about tribal entities, you can also reach out to the Office of Tribal Relations at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They're up here on the 5th floor with us, and lots of them have joined today's call. And so feel free to reach out to a number of them, Linda Cronin, Dennis Kennedy, Diane Kula, I think Isha Tyreek is on the phone, just to make sure that your voices are heard. And if you have real questions, they're a direct line for you. So thanks again for joining us. If there are no questions, we'll go ahead and talk next steps. You know, I think the biggest thing for Mike Beatty on things like these is what's next, and how do we continue to partner with the groups that were present? How do we make sure that we're getting the right information into the hands of people that need it? And how do we pass this on? And how do we kind of institutionalize the things that we've learned here today? We've talked about 4 of the 5, and really informally, even the 5th of those buckets of the task force recommendations. We heard great things from FSA and rural development and NRCS, wanting to make sure that you all have the resources you need. So up on your slide, you'll see the next steps for becoming a community of faith and opportunity with U.S. Department of Agriculture. We talked a little bit about what this means, and I know several of you have already taken great strides at becoming formally recognized as a community of faith and opportunity here at USDA, as launched by Secretary Perdue last fall. But if you're not familiar, you can check out the link on your screen, and Mitch and Megan will also get that put up in the chat box. You can go there and find out what exactly a community of faith and opportunity designation means for you. You can also find things like, hey, if I've got a challenge in veteran workforce development, I know we have our military veterans ag liaison on the line here today. You can find resources there. If one of your issues is broadband or access to technology, then we can get you in connection with the right people here at USDA and in your field. It's not just a USDA headquarter program. It's a program to connect you to local assets. And so we'd love it if you could visit that link. You could insert, it's almost like a survey that you can insert the challenges that exist in your communities. Who's going to help tag team these issues with you? Is it a mayor or the school board, or is it businesses or maybe a local main street? And then how can we help you? What will happen is once you've submitted those challenges, if you will, to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Our team will take a look at those challenges and will match you to the best of our ability with resources that exist for you here at USDA and across the federal department, with other federal departments too. We just designated 25 formal communities of faith and opportunity in the last month, and we'd love to continue doing that for you and your community in any corner of the US. Tell your friends about this too. Certainly take a screenshot if you're able, or share the link with others. But again, would love to have you and would love to help you in this way if we're able to. We have a few minutes for questions either about the process or about what you heard today. We told you that we'd give you some time at the end to let it kind of sink in and digest, and that you'd be able to ask those questions again at the end. And so before we sign off, are there any other questions that we might be able to answer for you? All right, well, you certainly have my email address and you have the links for the presentations that were presented today. We will follow up with providing you the slide deck and registration list of those participants and the materials that you saw today in email form. If you have any questions at all, please reach out. Let us know how we can connect you to resources in your neck of the woods and how we can connect you to the people that you've been, you've been discussing with today. We so appreciate you, and on behalf of Mike Beatty, and I think Jackie's still on, our Deputy Director, Jacqueline Davis-Slay, we so appreciate you jumping on today. It's been a real honor to be here with you in the state of Oklahoma, and so we appreciate you, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks again.